Okay, let's talk about the Oxy-Acetylene setup. I sent one home with Justin, and I have one. And I've got welding rods, and I have... Oh, no, I don't. I got brazing rods too, but these are more... There we go. These are brazing rods. You can see the white powdery film, and it's got, you know, brazing here, brazing rod in it, and this is like the flux here on the outside that helps you with it. And it turns out a nice little gold color. So these are made by Lincoln. I believe I got them out at Home Depot. So let's talk about a couple of things. We have we have oxygen. That's this big cylinder. It's called an H cylinder. And we have acetylene in a smaller cylinder. This is the flammable gas, the acetylene. So now, and you see the hoses are all draped over this. Okay, so that's primarily, I just use welding rods or brazing rods. It has lots of other uses. Another use that I use this for a lot is I take railroad ties and I'll heat them up like you would a forge, and I don't have a forge, but I heat them up because they're so thick. Then I'm able, you know, with heavy hammers, to bend those railroad spikes the way that I want them. And I twist the ends of horseshoes to make it look like hands on some of the cowboy things that I do. But let's get back to this. So you have acetylene and you have oxygen. Okay, and they both have gauges on here. Now, this gauge, we're talking about acetylene because I would turn this one on first. And you don't have to open this up wide open. I just barely opened it, probably just a little bit. And you'll see the gauge here fly up on it. This is telling you how much gas is in the cylinder. Now this one, so this is the gauge that shows you how much is in the cylinder. This one here, just like on the MIG welder video that we did, as I tighten this, it will start to send gas through the tube. But I only want so much gas. So how much gas? Well, I set it for around 6. So you'll see the needle here slowly moving up. So I just barely turn this and you can watch it creeping up on me. Now, everybody's different. I bring mine up to right around 6. Right around in there. Well, this is all I do for this one. Now this is for my particular use, and like I said, it's what works for me. Now you got the oxygen. So we have our acetylene set. And so I'm going to open this one. And I open it up. And this one you can open up quite a bit. It won't hurt anything. And I look over here. And it's telling me how many pounds of oxygen I have in the cylinder. So I got quite a bit still. Okay, now, when we talk about the oxygen, where do I want it? Well, let's take a look at the gauge here, which is, it's kind of a mess. Sorry about that. But I want to set this right here. Somewhere between 8 and 10. So there's the 20, so we know half of that's 10. So okay, you heard the little diaphragm pop itself open. And I come up somewhere right there in the middle, which is going to be right around 10. Okay, now, let's talk about the tips for a second. There are lots of different tips. This one I could use for brazing. This one's like a rosebud. It's used for heating. It just depends. And they screw on to the handle of your torch. Okay, now this one that's on here, this is a cutting torch that I have it set up for right now. So I'm not going to change it, but I'm just letting you know that you can screw different tips onto this if you want to. Depends on what you're doing. Let's see how this goes. So I'm going to turn on the acetylene very slowly, just a little bit. I misplaced my striker. I found a big lighter. Okay. Now,
can you show me which one the acetylene is and which one the oxygen is?
Well, they're supposed to be color coded here. They're not because it's got.
Oh, that one's green right here. This one's green. This one's red.
All right.
Looks like the red's going to the acetylene and the green's going to your oxygen.
Right, so these hoses are discolored, but yes, green would be oxygen, the red's going to be acetylene. Now you take a look here at this, watch. You see all that black, sooty, nasty ass smoke?
Is that from the acetylene?
Yeah, this is the acetylene. So I bring it out a ways.
Do you have the oxygen on yet or no?
Not yet. Now you can see it all settling everywhere. Now I turn on my oxygen slowly. Watch what happens. That soot starts to go away. Hold on a minute.
What's that adjustment for?
This right here is helping me to adjust up here at the tip. You'll see the cones. You see those little cones?
Uh-huh.
Don't put your hand close, it'll burn the hell out of you. And I play around with this right here on this one. Now, those cones right there, this is hot enough for me right now. The way that I have this, with all those little cones showing, where I can go heat that piece of steel and bend it. Now, with another tip on there...
Wait, can you cut with this one too?
You can cut with it.
Like a plasma cutter?
Well, kind of. Gives you a much rougher cut. If I wanted to cut, it gives you that extra burst. Now, hold on. Let's start over for just a sec.
Let's see. How would you know if you had too much oxygen or too much acetylene?
It'll pop out on you, or you won't get that nice little. I'll show you here this side. It's hard to do with this one the way I have it set up. Let me see if I can do it. Okay, this oxygen down here on the cutting torch, if I open this, I can control it here. Now watch the flame. And you see that nice little, all of that soot stuff goes away. Now make him see that cone.
Uh-huh.
Here we go.
It's getting sharper.
Right. Okay. I wouldn't use this that much. I mean, if I'm welding, I just make my cone tip here. Bring it down. This isn't really the right setup to weld, really. I have different welding tips. I'm just showing you on a particular torch. You're going to bring, there we go. This is before we started adding oxygen, all that soot. Here we go. The soot goes away. Now you're not going to weld with that. It's not hot enough. You need that nice blue little cone. Here comes the cone. Get it all the way down there best we can. Like I said, it's really not the right tip, but you want that blue cone. Then you can actually weld with it, or you can braze with it. I might not make it this hot. I might loosen this up some. Again, I need a different tip on here.
But, all tips aside, would you have to still wear a welding hood when you're brazing?
Yeah, I would wear welding goggles. Let me see if I've got them to show you.
Same thing with plasma cutting, or I'm sorry, not plasma cutting, but cutting.
Or yeah, I always wear that. I use that auto darkening shield, which works fine for it, you know.
Cool.
So when you're done, you're going to shut it off. You're going to open these handles, like I showed you before on the other welder, just like this. And you look at the gauges, and the line's still charged. So I open the valves. There it went to 0. Let's look at the acetylene. There it goes to 0. Now my lines are purged. So now I'm okay to put it away. Now, hold on, let me wrap this up and then you can. Don't forget your welding goggles, okay? This is important. Now you can use those auto darkening shields too that you use for, you know, your arc welding, MIG welding, but at minimum, get yourself a pair of welding goggles. They're not expensive, so you definitely need these. Get the thick rawhide gloves, or get yourself some good welding gloves, okay? Then that's your basics, I mean, to start off with. A lot of it is playing around, adjusting your flame. Get that, like I said, I didn't really have the one on there, I should have. But there's plenty of YouTube videos that will show you. Let me show you a couple. Here we go. These are all numbered, they're different sizes. There's some that are meant for welding, some that's, you know, meant for brazing. You can use them interchangeably to a degree, because you're not a professional welder. I'm not. So, I mean, I could have one of these on there, a welding tip, let's say, but I want to do brazing. I can play around with the flame settings It's a matter of practice. It's a matter of trying over and over. Don't worry about failing. Who cares? You're on scrap steel, you're playing around, you're learning. Pretty soon you get a technique down to where you can use certain tips to do both things. Rosebud tip I don't use so much anymore. I mean, it's great for heating up steel or sheets of steel and bending them and playing around. It still has a purpose, but the last one I did is with the cutting torch on there, and I just left it on there because I haven't started another project yet that requires me to change them out. So those are just the basics. Just play around with it. I mean, you'll get used to it. There are plenty of YouTube videos on guys that will show you probably very accurate ways to set the oxy and the acetylene. Okay.
Thanks for the tip, Dad. Appreciate it.
One more thing before we go. On all of these, make sure that you get their little, they almost look like something you would use on a smoking pipe. You can ream those holes on your welding tips and clean the outside of them. Just a piece of sandpaper or something.
Oh, like a chimney
that.
file.
Yeah, it's like a little chimney file, and that will clean the inside of that hole. And the outside you can just hit it with sandpaper. The cleaner you keep your tips, the more success you're going to have at welding. So those are just real basic.
I think I have one of those at the house. If I do, I'll make sure I put it towards the end of the video. Guys, if you haven't checked them out, oh, there you go. I think I have that same one that you gave me.
Yeah, because I gave you one too.
I think that's the, like, I have one.
So this is one right here.
Yep.
These are different little tiny files, and you use those for cleaning out those tips just by going back and forth. And this one's as old as time, and I'm still using it. They're very cheap at a welding supply store. Get one, you'll be glad you did. Okay.
This is the Home Handyman, everyone. If you haven't checked him out, the link will be down in the description. Make sure you go over to his channel. We've got some killer content coming up on not only my channel, but on his as well. Thanks, Dad.
Yep.
Alright, so here is the Oxine Acetylene torch setup that I have. And here's the little files that my dad was talking about. I think these are made by Forney. And on the back side it'll actually give you measurements as to which files were in here. Now I pulled the one out that actually fits this, and at the end here, I know it's hard to see, but it's got a little file. It's very smooth, very tiny file. Well, on the tip here, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but there's a lot of little tiny holes. And if you take the file and you insert through each one of those little holes, just kind of go back and forth, you can actually clean them out. And that's kind of what he's talking about there. So, like I said, this is a pretty cool little thing that my dad gave me to go with the Oxine Acetylene torch. You can see there's many files up here, and there's also a little palm file or hand file there. I'm not exactly sure what you would use that for in this situation when it comes to an Oxine Acetylene torch. Maybe you just kind of want to run the tip across like so to kind of deburr any kind of little pieces of fragments that might have collected on the end. I don't know. You guys will have to tell me down in the description. Thanks as always for watching. If you haven't already checked out the Home Handyman, the link will be down in the description. I appreciate your subscription. I know my dad appreciates your subscription. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give it a thumbs down. Share if you want to share. And we'll see you guys next time. Deuces.